Greetings and welcome back to Shadowbox Decision Games Warfighters Edition, the interactive site dedicated to helping practitioners exercise tactical decision-making skills and to advancing tactical thought in general through the use of tactical decision games, or TDGs. I'm your host, John Schmitt. I'm also the CEO of Shadowbox LLC, a company devoted to studying the nature of expertise in a variety of domains and to helping people develop that expertise through a variety of training interventions such as Warfighters. Today, we're here to discuss the Under Surveillance series of TDGs, which would be TDGs 15 through 18, and which together make up a single developing situation. My guest today is Nathan Micklatcher. Nathan, welcome. It's great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, yeah, so I told you I actually have no military background. I studied economics and I kind of have an interest in both because of family history and because of some of the work that I've done. I have an interest in military history. I did some volunteer work in the Middle East with an NGO there, and this was right around the time that ISIS was getting pushed out of central Iraq into the north. So I did some work in a few different countries, including Baghdad, and yeah, I just kind of developed an interest in military history based off of that. It was military situation was really relevant to everything we were doing there, so it's
Sure.
something that we kind of had to keep an eye on. And yeah, since then I've kind of been just keeping up to date on events in the Middle East, events going on in places I've been to, and yeah, I just was kind of looking at some commentary about the situation in the Middle East, and then that's actually where I found Warfighters from.
Okay. So I have to say, I was surprised to hear that you have no military background because when you first started participating in Warfighters and submitting your frag orders, I would read them they sounded authoritative. They were concise, they were clear, they sounded like the kind of order that somebody who'd issued a lot of small unit frag orders would issue. And I thought, well, this guy's been a platoon commander or a company commander before. And so I was really surprised to hear that you had no military experience at all. Is there any in your family or anything like that?
Yeah, a few family members who've been in the military. Most of that was probably closer to World War II or Korea, so very, very older history. I did have a lot of people that I grew up with, and in the town that I'm from, a lot of people who were either in the Guard or coming out of active duty. So there were a lot of family friends are kind of cycling back and forth to Iraq and Afghanistan. But
But
honestly, I
no,
kind of learned how to do, oh, yeah, I learned how to do like frag orders and operations orders mostly from um, planning with whether it's NGOs or, I've been involved in like some community, well, I wouldn't call it first responders, but like kind of um, community disaster relief. And
sure.
I found that like frag orders and operation orders are actually really useful in that context because it is a different context, but there's always a lot of unknowns and a lot of like you got to give a very, very short, you know, 4 or 5 sentences to get someone all the information they need.
Right.
And I've just found that that's actually where I kind of got good at writing operations orders for.
I was really impressed and really surprised. And you're right. I mean, it really is a case of less is more, right? It's tell them what they need to know and nothing more. And I think most people err on the side of providing too much information and too much context. And your orders were just really concise and really tight. And so I found that fascinating. And so what attracted you to the Warfighters site once you found it? Why you've been a regular participant ever since?
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's a lot of military history, a lot of the stuff that I read is like it's going through a lot of things that um, decisions are made 50 years ago, and then it's very easy to look back in retrospect and say like, oh, they should have done this with the information that I have now. So, I enjoy having something that's like kind of puts me in the perspective of someone, whether
Sure.
it's like contemporary or historical. It's putting me in the perspective of someone who's actually having to make those decisions with little or no information. Like, what assumptions do they have to make?
Sure.
uh, what unknowns are there. So I think it helps me really get into the mindset of someone like of a historical leader.
Sure. And I mean, that's the whole point, is to put you there and to sort of force you to feel what they were feeling, and to deal with the uncertainties that they were dealing with, because it's all about dealing with uncertainty, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about under surveillance. So the first thing is that in addition to trying to provide exercises just straight up to train decision making skills, this series of TDGs was an attempt to explore the Marine Corps concepts of stand-in forces and expeditionary advance-based operations (EABO), which are controversial concepts, and so it was an attempt on my part to ask, what's it really take to do this, and is it really feasible? Right? There are a lot of questions about it. Security, survivability, sustainment. How do you sustain these elements? How do you avoid detection? How do you withdraw these things once your mission's complete? How do you deal with casualty care when you're isolated and you can't evacuate in the golden hour like we're so used to being able to do? So there are a lot of questions, and these scenarios were an attempt to try to deal with them. So the first one, TDG 15, which is the basic under surveillance. And that one, you're a rifle squad leader in the rifle platoon that's providing security for an anti-ship missile battery that's on this remote island with the mission of attacking enemy shipping. And the detachment also includes a headquarters, a truck detachment, a logistics detachment, a mortar section, and an air defense section. And all of these can also pull security in the perimeter with the three rifle squads that are there. The island, as you see, is covered in scrub, punctuated by copses of bamboo. The entire detachment is ordered to observe radio listening silence to avoid detection. Transmission is authorized only in case of emergencies. Hills 21, 28, and 22 are all pre-planned registered targets. So So, of course, that's going to happen to me. So 21, 28, 22, all pre-planned targets. SOP calls for the unit to displace immediately upon missile launch to avoid counter battery fire, which our experience tells us arrives in 15 to 20 minutes. Two additional positions have been reconnoitered and planned, with the primary one being via Route Tiger. So the primary plan is to withdraw or displace via Route Tiger. The secondary is to displace via Route Irish, as you see there. The signal to immediately begin the well-rehearsed displacement procedure is the missile launch itself. And so the last 2 days, and here's where the situation starts to develop. The last 2 days, two unidentified individuals have been spotted on Hill 28 observing the detachment through binoculars. Both times they've fled east by vehicle. So they boogie off this way, east by vehicle, when a motorized patrol has been dispatched to investigate. The commander has decided to dispatch a foot patrol to Hill 28 to be in position by dawn to detain the observers if they return tomorrow morning, which we expect that they might, given the pattern. Your platoon commander assigns the task to your squad. So you've now given the mission of going to occupy Hill 28. So this is what you do. You depart the perimeter after dark. You follow a concealed route to a bamboo copse on the south slope of Hill 28. You push an observation/listening post, OPLP, forward onto the scrub brush at the crest, and you wait. And at 0530, you yourself crawl out to the LPOP. You don't see anything by 6 o'clock, but you notice the observers have not returned. But by 6:15, as day breaks, you now spot a civilian utility vehicle appear from the east, like this. On Route Tiger, it leaves the trail and makes its way slowly up the rugged eastern slope of Hill 22, about 300 meters to your north, stopping short of the crest, and two armed men in paramilitary garb exit the vehicle, move by foot to the crest of the hill, where they commence surveillance on the missile position. So it looks like the same guys, but they've picked a different position. You're formulating a plan on how you're going to go capture them when you see more movement from the east. You spot a mix of civilian vehicles, 12 in total, also approaching east from the east on Route Tiger. In the lead vehicle are three civilian pickup trucks, or in the lead are three civilian pickup trucks, each modified with improvised armor and a machine gun mounted in the bed. Following the pickups are 9 utility trucks that could each easily carry a rifle squad, similarly up-armored. And they halt east of Hill 22, so they halt over here, while the 3 gun vehicles make their way slowly up the eastern slope of Hill 22 to join the observers. And then, meanwhile, the last truck, some men in military uniforms with weapons disembark and begin setting up 5 mortars in the tall grass by the roadside. And just then, you hear the familiar whoosh, and you turn to see that the missiles are launching seaward from the missile battery. So now your anti-ship missile battery has just launched. This is the situation. What are you going to do? So, listeners, if you have not done this TDG on the Warfighters site yet, pause the video here to take 3 minutes to come up with a plan in the form of the orders that you will issue and any requests or reports that you will make, and then rejoin us when you're done. Okay, so Nathan, by the way, you use call sign Wolf 314, right?
Yep.
So what's the background on that?
So my middle name is actually Wolf. It's my grandma's maiden name. And the 314, I actually don't remember where that came from. I'm sure there's a story behind it, but I
Okay.
just can't
Okay.
remember.
Anyway, all right. So you're the squad leader. Your call sign is Wolf 314. You see what you see. You hear what you hear. What was your plan? What did you decide to do and why?
Yeah, so my plan was first engage the enemy unit, and then obviously this is an emergency, so it justifies radio contact.
So
So
you're going to
I'm
break
going to
radio
send
listening
contact.
silence. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the battery's going to be coming down either Tiger or Irish pretty quickly, so I need to let them know. I mean, Tiger's blocked, Irish is blocked, and Buckeye is blocked too. So really, the only way they can go is down Bulldog. So I want to
Right.
let them know that. Um, Now, what I kind of had trouble deciding was what should the priority be for fires. Like, I can call in
Yes.
mortars on Hill 22 and
Yeah.
then ship them east. But for my own squad, this is something that I was kind of wondering is what should be my priority
Right. So
for firing
you
on
got
target.
the right. So you've got the 2 observers on Hill 22. You've got the 3 gun vehicles that are in basically defilade on the other side of Hill 22, but can very quickly pop up on Hill 22 and begin engaging the battery. And then you've got the mortars, which are taking up a firing position, and then you've got 9 other trucks, covered trucks, which could carry roughly a company's worth of rifle squads, right? So which was your priority?
Well, initially when I read through this, I missed the part where it said that the gun trucks are armored. So I think that that's probably going to affect my decision with if I just have small arms. I don't know if any of those are actually going to penetrate the armor.
Yeah.
So I want to take out a crew serve weapon. So I'd probably shift my squad's fire to the mortars here because they're
Right.
unarmored and that's quite a bit of firepower. And then starts pressing the mortars. And then my own platoon mortars, I'm going to request a fire mission on Hill 22 and move it to adjust their fires to hit the gun trucks. So that way,
Right.
I'm hitting both of their crew serve weapons,
Yeah.
or both of
Um,
their squads with crew serve weapons.
so I didn't specify what you brought with you with your squad. I mean, a good squad leader is going to take a couple of AT4s, you would hope, right? So if you're thinking ahead, you're anticipating that they came in vehicles. You might want something that could take out a vehicle. So I'd like to think that the squad leader would have thought to bring a couple of AT4s with them. So maybe you got a couple of AT4s. If so, you put those on the gun vehicles.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
my
think
my
the gun
priority
vehicles
was,
are,
yeah,
yeah.
they're the most
Yeah, I
immediate
think especially
threat.
because, Yeah, I think especially because the gun vehicles can get direct fire
Yeah,
onto the battery pretty quickly, I think
yeah.
the gun trucks are the most immediate threat.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, and of course, you got three fire teams, and you can give three different fire orders if you want, right? Fire commands. So first fire team, suppress those gun vehicles, AT, and use the AT4s, right? Second and third, suppress the mortars. If you take out the mortars, shift to the trucks. I one of my big debates was in my own mind was, do I ask for the mortars now or not? Because I'm thinking the detachment is scrambling to displace, right? So that's going to be crazy, right? And my lieutenant is focused on that. Um, and do we have time to get a fire mission or two out of the mortars? Do we have time to adjust them onto the target? Probably not. Um, I'm thinking if I spring an ambush and I hit these guys pretty good, I knock them for a loop, I put them on the back foot. I've bought my detachment some time. I'm envisioning that what's going to follow is a rear guard action, rear guard delaying action, and I'm going to need my mortars for that. I'm going to need my mortars to break contact when I'm being pursued. Here, if I hit these guys hard enough, I can probably break contact without the help of the mortars. And I'm thinking maybe I let the mortars go, get to a subsequent firing position, and then I've got them in position to support my delaying action a little further down the road. Of course, you can always ask for them, and the lieutenant can say, "No, sorry, you're not going to get mortars because we got to get out of the kill zone because we're expecting counter battery fire." So I don't want to get above my pay grade, but I was debating whether I really needed mortars or not. I'm thinking with my organic weapons, especially if I've got some AT4s, I can hit them hard enough to stun them and buy myself and the rest of the detachment some time without requiring the mortars, and I can use the mortars later. But I agree with you on the priority of fires. I agree with you that we got to ambush. There's no reason to wait. There's certainly no reason to ask the lieutenant what to do because you see the situation better than he does. He's got his hands full with the displacement. But I am thinking that I need to be talking to my lieutenant about what's going to happen next, because I imagine there's going to be some kind of delaying action that's going to involve me and the other squads, and I'd like to know what he's got in his head, right? I can't sit here forever. I'm expecting I'm going to have to pull out pretty quickly, and the other squads are going to have to take over somehow. I was,
Yeah, I think
I'm, go ahead.
my I think my initial thought was, yeah, I'm going to request the mortar fire, and then also when I'm letting the platoon commander know what's going on, um, my first thought was to ask him to send the second and third squads up to Hill 21, so that way they can give me some support without, um, they can kind of get set for a rear guard action.
Right. Yeah.
Which again, I don't know if that's getting above my pay grade, but
Well,
that
but
was
it's
my
certainly
first.
it's certainly not. There's no problem with talking to the lieutenant about that. Like, lieutenant, let's get on the same page, right? And I've told you what I know. I told you what I'm doing. He's presumably now going to have some thoughts about what he wants me to do next and what he's going to be doing to support me, and how what I'm going to do is going to fit into the bigger picture. So I envision there will be a conversation that takes place here, right?
Right.
One last thought on this one. You and I both agreed radio listening silence at this point is just a complete red herring, right? I
Mhm.
mean, they've been watching us for 3 days. They know we're here. They know our
Right.
exact location. We've just launched a bunch of anti-ship missiles, a huge signature. If anybody thinks that we're still going to avoid detection at this point by not breaking radio listening silence, then I think they're delusional. So yeah,
Right.
that means nothing. Get on the hook. Tell the lieutenant what's going on. Tell the lieutenant what you're doing about it. Especially tell the lieutenant, hey, Tiger and Route and Irish are out. And
Mhm.
really, I strongly recommend you guys going Bulldog because that's really the only option. So that's the first one. And then the second one is the TDG 16 is the uh, continued development of this situation now from the platoon commander's point of view. So now you're the platoon commander of that security platoon. You've sent first squad out on the foot patrol to Hill 28 to be in position at dawn to capture the two persons who've been spotted there on successive days, observing your battery position should they return. Second and third squads remain in position in the perimeter around the battery. At about 6:20 in the morning the next day, the missile battery launches a salvo of missiles, which is the signal to immediately begin the displacement procedure. The planned displacement on Route Tiger will take you past first squad's position, so you figure you'll just pick them up on the way. But then first squad breaks radio silence to report that it has engaged a hostile force with machine guns and mortars that seemed to be assembling between hills 22 and 24 for an attack on the battery position. The squad leader requests fire from the mortar section. The entire detachment is now scrambling to displace before the expected counter battery fire hits your position within the next 20 minutes or so. So that's the situation. What are you going to do? So again, listeners, if you have not already done this TDG on Warfighters, pause the video here, take 3 minutes, decide what you would do as the platoon commander in the form of any orders you will issue and any other requests or reports that you will make, and then come back and join us. Okay, so Wolf 314, you're the platoon commander now. The situation is as you see it. Your first squad has taken the initiative to engage the enemy. They've broken radio listening silence to tell you what's going on. They've told you Tiger and Irish are out. They've requested for mortar fire. And so what was your assessment and what was your answer?
Yeah, so I'm going to make sure the mortars complete the fire mission, and then I'm going to let the battery commander know the other three routes are out. He's got to go down Bulldog. And then
You're gonna wait for the mortar mission to complete first, and then you're gonna tell him that?
oh no, sorry, I would let the battery commander know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean
Yeah, let the battery.
immediately, because they're planning to come down Tiger, right? I mean, so you've got to get them reoriented as quickly as possible, so that they can get out of there smoothly and quickly on Bulldog. You're right. So tell the detachment, hey, Tiger and Irish and Buckeye are out. Your only way out is Bulldog. Right. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so I'm going to let him know that the other three routes are out and he's got to go down Bulldog. And then my intention is going to be take second and third squads up to Hill 21.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to let the battery commander know, hey, I'm going to fight a rear guard action.
Well, it's
Um,
yeah, okay, got it. Yeah. Keep
and
going.
I'm thinking Hill 21 is going to be best because it's the closest spot that I can get observation on pretty much the entire enemy unit. I don't really want to take them all the way around to Hill 28 because first it's a longer trip, and also I'm getting everyone bunched up onto one hill with an enemy
Right.
that has mortars, has machine guns, and has a full company. So I want to get some dispersion. And I also, by setting up on Hill 21, that's going to be the best spot to help first squad withdraw once
Sure.
they have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to be pulling back in that direction anyway, and Hill
Yeah.
21 is sort of the logical next successive position, right? If you push everybody to Hill 28, you got nobody to leapfrog past. So you're kind of setting yourself up for sort of alternating bounds to do this rear guard action that you're talking about. Yeah, exactly. Okay, keep going.
Um, I think this is where, not having a military background kind of hurts. With the mortars, how long would I expect them to actually take to complete that fire mission? Because if they're in that position, my biggest concern is going to be getting them out of the way before the counter battery fire comes in.
Right. Yeah. So that was a question for me, right? How much do I want to rely on them now and keep them in the battery position, which we expect is going to come under counter battery fire pretty quickly here? Um, Maybe a mission. Probably don't have time to adjust fire onto the target, like I said. So one immediate suppression mission. It's a pre-planned target. They can complete, one round or one round per tube, maybe even 2 rounds per tube. They can complete that within a couple minutes, 3 minutes, and be moving. But I don't know that I would keep them any longer than that. I would want to get them on the
Okay, so they
road
got
and go ahead.
yes, they got time to do a fire mission, then displace and get somewhere else before the counter battery starts coming in. Then
Right. I mean, so I'm giving them
okay,
some guidance about I want you, 2 kilometers down, head 2 kilometers west on Bulldog, set up your next firing position as quickly as possible to be able to support my rear guard action. Right. So I sent them two
yeah,
kilometers, which means they've still got roughly 3 kilometers of range to support my movement. But I want to get them into position quickly because I really believe I'm going to need them during this rear guard action. So you've set
Now, my
yourself up
one,
two squads on 21. You've still got first squad on 28. Are you pulling them out yet?
I'm going to leave first squad in place for now, just to cover my move up to 21. And
Mhm. But
I think
once you
next
get second
sense,
and third squads on Hill 21 and you're there with them, presumably, so now you've gotten eyes on the situation yourself, which is great. Up until this point, you've been relying on your squad leader, who's been doing a great job, but you want to get your own eyes on the situation, understandably. So once you get to Hill
yeah.
21 with your two squads, are you going to hold there with first squad for a while and try to battle these guys out and buy the detachment more time? Or are you already thinking it's time to pull first squad back to its next subsequent position, maybe back to join you, um, and move by successive bounds, or what are you thinking?
Well, my first thought, and I think this kind of gets into the next one, but my first thought was, if I'm the enemy commander, I'm immediately going to send, like the night before I actually launch the attack, I'm going to get some sort of ambush into Hill 25. Because if I'm covering these three routes of my main attack, then I'm probably going to want something on Hill 25 because I know that the battery is going to go down route Bulldog. So immediately when I saw, okay, we're going down Bulldog, I was thinking the enemy is probably going to have something waiting for us on Hill 25 if they have the time and the resources for it.
Interesting. Okay.
So my thinking
You're giving this
was,
enemy commander quite a bit of credit here.
well, I want to assume he's at least as smart as me.
Yeah, and
So,
not a smart idea to assume he's an idiot. Okay.
yeah.
But
So
maybe this is not just some local paramilitary force. Maybe this is something more professional.
yeah, so I think my answer in the next decision making game that I gave was I'm going to move first squad
So let's do that.
on.
So let's do that.
Okay,
So you got
okay,
a plan. You're moving second and third squads to Hill 21. You're holding first squad at Hill 28. You're engaging the enemy, trying to inflict as much damage as you can. You're trying to get one, maybe two fire missions out of your mortars before they've got to get out of what you think is going to be the kill zone, right? So that's where we are. So TDG 17 now is the continuation of TDG 16. So you're again the commander of the rifle platoon, that is the security element for the reinforced missile battery. So as we learned previously, at 6:20 in the morning, the missile battery launches a salvo of missiles and begins its displacement procedure. But then first squad breaks radio silence to report that it's engaged a hostile paramilitary force of 10 vehicles with machine guns and mortars that seems to be assembling between hills 22 and 24. On your recommendation, the detachment commander opts to displace west on Route Bulldog rather than east on Tiger as planned. You instruct the mortars to fire one mission before displacing with the rest of the detachment, and after a kilometer, it's to drop off from the column to establish a firing position to support your platoon's rear guard action. You double time second and third squads on foot to establish a battle position on Hill 21 to support first squad, and also to get out of the immediate impact zone of the expected counter battery fire. Um, First squad reports that it has inflicted casualties on the enemy mortar section, which was your priority, a fire in your initial solution. And that mortar section is returned to its vehicle and is withdrawn east out of sight. So I'm kind of blocking. There we are. So that enemy mortar section has re-embarked on its vehicles and disappeared out of sight, heading east on Tiger. You arrive at Hill 21 to see the two enemy machine gun vehicles on the eastern slope of Hill 22 engaging first squad. Meanwhile, the remaining 7 or 8 enemy vehicles disappears behind Hill 22, heading northwest toward Route Buckeye. It's now been 10 minutes. So the bulk of the enemy force is sort of doing this and they disappear from a site occluded by Hill 22 there. The mortars have escaped This way, the machine guns are still engaging your first squad. So that's the situation as it's developing now. So listeners, again, if you haven't done this already, the scenario, pause the video, come up with a plan, and then rejoin us. Okay, so Wolf 314, this is what you saw. What were you thinking, and what were you doing?
Yeah, so my two kind of competing concerns that I have are first, I've got the enemy force coming around to Buckeye now, and
So
then
so your reading of the situation is they're picking up Buckeye and they're going to try to launch the attack into the battery position via Buckeye instead of via Tiger.
yeah, that's what it's looking like
So
because
they're not running away. They're not disappearing. They're just looking for another way to get at us. And they're continuing to
yeah, I
use
think
their machine guns as their base of fire.
yeah, I think they've seen us. They've seen that we have pretty good cover over Route Tiger. They don't want to pass right underneath our guns, so they're going to try to go back around Buckeye.
Okay.
And then, and like I mentioned previously, I'm also concerned about Hill 25 potentially there being some sort of ambush site set
Right.
up there because that's definitely what I'd do. So the orders that I would give are
Let me
the
say, by
orders
the
that
way,
I
nobody mentioned that in any of the discussion on warfighters as the situation developed. That's a really insightful observation, but it did not come up in the conversation, I have to say. Okay, so continue.
yeah, so I definitely want to get first squad out of there now because they've done the mission of kind of at least diverting the enemy, and they can't really do any more good in the position. But well, they can still maybe suppress the machine guns, but at this point, I'm more worried about first squad getting outflanked and getting cut off.
Right.
So the solution I had was order first squad to withdraw around to my south and actually head over to Hill 25 because
Sure.
if there's
Okay.
an ambush there, they're probably going to have a security element on the south slope. So I want to get first squad out there to find out is there actually enemy on Hill 25.
Sure.
Um, Meanwhile, I'm going to tell the battery. It's a terrible circle, but I'm going to tell the battery, or at least advise them to fire onto Hill 25 as they go past. Because if there is an ambush there, I want them to go into that ambush already lighting the hill up and already sending some return fire.
Yeah.
And that gives them the best chance of actually getting through that ambush in one piece. So if all the timing works out, then first squad is going to hit Hill 25 and hit any sort of ambush site from the rear, while also the battery is hitting them with suppressing fire from the north. And I think that gives the best chance of actually getting the battery out of there intact in one piece.
Are you going to try to orchestrate that so that you're going to hold up the movement of the detachment until first squad's in a position to hit the Hill 25 simultaneously? Is this a synchronized operation, or are you not going to try to be that precise?
No, I don't. I think it's gonna be a little bit too complicated with everyone running, trying to get out of there. I think that would be a little bit too much to ask to try to pull off.
I absolutely agree. That was a loaded question.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to synchronize this with the fast moving situation you got, you're going to end up the plan is just too brittle, right? If it happens that way, great. Um, but to try to orchestrate that kind of move in this situation, I think is asking too much. All right, so you're getting
Yeah. So I
first
think
squad out,
that's
and they're falling back, and so now you're kind of it's sort of developing into a delay by alternate positions, right? Alternating bounds
mhm.
as first squad leapfrogs past second and third, and sets up the next subsequent position on 25 and deals with the ambush if it's there, and then you're thinking, what about second and third?
Yeah. So I guess my ideal scenario is I let the enemy company come into kind of our old position right around the intersection of all these routes. I
Right,
know they're going to have to pass here. Even if they did swing back around and take Tiger, they'd still have to come back through that old position because that's the point where all the roads meet.
right.
So, best scenario would be if I get second and third squads back to Hill 25. So I'm going to let second and third squads know, be prepared to withdraw to 25 on my order. And then when first squad is back there, I'm gonna get second and third squads to meet up with them. So I have my full platoon at Hill 25. And if they get back into that position, um, the ideal would be they hit that position right around the time the counter battery fire comes in. I mean, we talked earlier about how we can't time anything exactly, and we don't even know if counter battery fire will come in.
Right.
But I'm going to get full platoon onto Hill 25 and actually suppress the enemy as they come through the old battery position. And if we can get them into an actual stand-up fight at that spot, that gives us the best chance of actually getting counter battery fire right on top of their heads.
Right. So if we get lucky, they're in our old battery position when the counter battery fire arrives. But again, not something that we're really in a position to orchestrate. And if we think we are, we're kind of deluding ourselves. If it works out that way, great, and we'll do everything we can to sort of delay them there. But we don't know if and when it's actually going to arrive. So you had made a point earlier when we were talking about the viability of Hill 21 and how long we would want to stay there because if we do get counter battery fire, just how big an impact area is that going to have, right? And I'm thinking, we don't know exactly what kind of weapons we're dealing with. Is the enemy got precision weapons or are they just firing naval guns? But presuming that the fire is coming from somewhere out to the northwest, it's going to be sort of a longer impact zone than it is wide. And we could be okay on Hill 21, or we could be within the impact area, and Hill 21 is problematic. And so we would want to know a little bit more about the nature of their weaponry and its accuracy and that kind of stuff. But certainly, Hill 21 is danger close, and I don't think
Mhm.
I want to stay there for long. I think I agree with you. The first thing I do is I want to get first squad back to Hill 25. And then I'm thinking I want to pretty quickly get at least one of my squads back there to join them. And I'm not sure that I'd bring the entire platoon to Hill 25. I'm already thinking the terrain doesn't show or the map doesn't show what the further terrain is to the west. But I'm already starting to thinking that I'm moving by alternating bounds, and one of my squads is going to bypass 25 and move to the next subsequent positions. So I've always got that leapfrog ability going on. But I am interested in getting off Hill 2021 fairly quickly just because I'm concerned about danger close to the counter battery fire that I think is coming, but I don't necessarily know. But in my mind, I've got this alternating bounds, rear guard action taking place, and I am cognizant of. I agree with you. I think the enemy's coming around on Buckeye, and if we can catch him in the battery position and hold him up there for as long as possible in the hopes that he might be caught in his own counter battery fire, that'd be great. But I'm not gonna gamble everything on that, and I'm certainly not willing to get into a pitched fight to try to make that happen. If it comes time to move to my next subsequent position as part of the delay action, then that's what I'm going to do. Okay, great. So let's move on to the last scenario. This has been great, by the way. The last, and I really love the thinking about an intelligent enemy putting an ambush on Hill 25, anticipating our reaction. So he's thinking, if I launch this attack, the only way that they can go is west on Bulldog, and I'll have somebody in position to ambush them when they do. That would be a really thoughtful enemy commander. So I
Yeah,
love that you
like I
brought
came
that to
up
my
with a
head.
plan yeah, I came up with the initial plan that wasn't even really thinking about Hill 25, but it was pretty in line with the rest of the solutions. And then as I was kind of giving it one last look over, Hill 25 just kept on popping out to me, and I don't know, I didn't have a good feeling about it, so I started thinking, okay, if what would I do if I was the enemy commander? And it's put an ambush on Hill 25.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I see it. Well, I see it now. I didn't see it at the time, I have to admit. Okay, so moving on. So now we're at endgame, right? So now we're up to TDG 18, right? And so in this one, you're still the platoon commander. You've been conducting this rear guard action that we're talking about, and the detachment is withdrawing to an embarkation point on the end of this peninsula. that you see, this narrow peninsula, and you're falling back. All right. So we're approaching the extraction point. We've been under pressure the entire time from an enemy force that you now realize is a special operations unit that has been infiltrated onto the island and is now equipped and disguised as a paramilitary force, which is one of the concerns that I had about this concept of stand-in forces, that it was not only vulnerable to attack by missiles or long-range weapons, it was also vulnerable to attack by a ground force that had discovered it and was able to infiltrate onto the island. So you've arrived at near the extraction point. You're holding your final defensive positions while the rest of the detachment embarks on the first of two LSMs. Those are landing ship mediums. So the rest of the detachment, the battery is now on board safely, and it's just your platoon. First, second, and third squads, as you see them, your mortar section is out of mortar rounds, so they're basically now just operating as a fourth rifle squad. So you've got four rifle squads. First and third squads, as you can see, first and third are engaging the enemy force, the main enemy force that's advancing down Route 1 and pressuring you that way. Second squad is actually over here delaying a second, smaller, roughly platoon-sized force that's coming down Route 17, and they're over on this. They're over on this position here, trying to delay these guys. And they report 4 vehicles cresting Hill 18 on Route 17 on the southern side of the peninsula. The detachment commander reports that the rest of the detachment is embarked on the first LSM, which is now pushing back. He orders you to break contact and load up the remaining LSM. Both LSMs are able to support you with their deck-mounted 30mm cannons. So listeners, that's the situation. Once again, if you haven't done this scenario already, pause the video, decide what you're going to do in the form of the orders that you will issue to your 4 rifle squads, and then rejoin us. Wolf 314, what did you do?
Yeah, so looking at this, it looks pretty obvious that there's a main body coming down this road, but then there's the second element trying to turn our flank. So I wanted to get first and third squads basically out of the fire right away. So I ordered them to withdraw between mortars and second squad,
Yeah.
and I think that's a little bit more specificity than I wanted to give. I didn't really want to tell them exactly what route to take, but I do think that it's important that we're going to have second squad suppressing this element and then mortars covering the roads in the north. So just avoiding sort of crossfire, I thought it was important enough to order first and third squads to withdraw like through this kind of forested area between mortars and second.
I like
So
that. So thinking of the geometry of fire, if first squad were to withdraw this way, I mean, they're now in the line of fire if the mortars
mhm.
are engaging an enemy pushing this way. Again, depending on the timing, right? So yeah, so I really like that thinking. It is, as you agree, it's telling them exactly how to do, accomplish the task, but for a reason, that it's keeping them out
Mhm.
of the line of friendly fire, because we're going to be firing this way, we're going to be firing this way, and so this is the gap. And the other thing it does is it puts first and third squads together now. So instead
Mhm.
of two moving parts, it's one moving part. It's simpler, right? And the simpler we can keep things in a very hectic situation like this, the better. So it's one movement to get first and third back, rather than two separate movements that now need to be coordinated and deconflicted with the other things that are going on. So I like that thinking very much. So continue.
Um, Now, I have to make a confession here. The first time I read through this, when I read LSMs, I was thinking LCMs. So I was thinking they're going to be like those little 100-ton kind of supersized Higgins boats. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that it was a full-on ship.
It's
So,
well, it hasn't been built yet. There's been a lot of different models. It was at one point it was the Law, the light amphibious warship, and now it's the landing ship medium. But it's designed to handle, I think, 50 Marines each. Yeah, so
Okay.
a very small amphibious ship.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, when I thought it was the LCM, obviously that's gonna be a lot more maneuverable and easy to move around. So my first proposal or my first solution I came up with was to take the MTLCM or LSM and move it around to the pier here and load up from there because I can move my first and third squads, set up a strong point here, maybe here kind of the northeast corner of this facility,
Right.
and then that gives a pretty good strong point to withdraw my mortars in second squad while also being able to engage anything coming down Route 1 or anything coming down Route 17.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, it might be a little bit more difficult to work with that with LSMs because they're a lot bigger. Didn't realize at the time, but that was my initial solution.
So you were going to extract through that abandoned port facility. So sort of a small urban area, and that's always good defensive terrain, right? It's very compact. It's very compartmented, and so not a bad position, to make your final stand as you. And also, I think the buildings might provide some cover for the LSMs. Yeah, so I get that. I was thinking a little bit differently, and again, there are no right answers here. But I was thinking that I want to get first and third back to my final position, which is Hill 23. So I'm going to pull them back this way. I had not honestly thought about, I was assuming that first was going to come north of Route 1. I like your idea of having them come through the middle, having them join with third squad, and then just making one movement, make this my final position, have the LSM that's already pushing back, have them sort of swing around to the south so that they can provide overhead fire this way, and the LSM that's going to embark us can provide overhead fire up Route 1. So we've got suppressive fire, or the one that's to the south also, by the way, can suppress these guys here if they need to. So I'm using my LSMs to provide suppressive fire for the final displacement of my units, but I'm taking first and third back to Hill 23, which is my final position. Mortars and second are now, once first and third are established on Hill 23, mortars and second are going to withdraw. They're going to get on the ships, and then the remaining ship, and then my last movement with me being the last guy to get on the ramp is to withdraw first and third, and I'm the last guy climbing up the ramp to make sure I've got everybody with me, and then we pull back while we're engaging the enemy with the ship's deck gun, and we're done. So I'm still in my sort of alternating bounds rearward kind of mode, and with Hill 23 being my final position. So that was sort of my end game. I thought yours was interesting. I like the idea of using that port facility, the broken terrain there, and also the idea of getting that ship to the south. That sort of sets up the two lines of fire between the two ships still, and also would allow you to engage this way. So you're still using the ships to provide, I think, the most efficient fire that you can get to suppress the enemy to help with your displacement. It's just a question of, are we doing it from the port? Are we doing it using Hill 23 as sort of our final position? I don't think there's a right answer.
Yeah, I think it's you know, depending on like how maneuverable the LSMs are and how fast they can
Yeah,
actually
we don't know. We
relocate,
don't
it's
know
something
any.
that I think can
Yes,
find out.
we don't know any of
Uh,
that stuff just yet, right? Yeah. So this is
so when
this
I
is
was
all
initially looking at
conjecture.
it, yeah, when I was initially looking at it, I was thinking, oh, it's an LCM. That's really easy to just bring it around to just move it a few hundred meters to the southeast. But then once I realized you pointed out that that's a full ship, not an LCM. I don't know how realistic that would be. So yeah, I think with it being an LSM, it would probably be better to keep the reembarkation point the same and then just move the LSM that's already full around to the southeast to cover. And
Yeah.
I think the reason that I was thinking, like my initial thought was, yeah, pull a platoon back to Hill 23 and then embark at CP44. The reason that I thought about changing it to this peer down here was it's kind of bringing the LSMs to us a little bit more. So they're coming up to us rather than us having to withdraw as far, and
Right.
it puts it still puts a lot of difference between us and the main body up to the northeast. Which my big priority is keeping as much distance as possible between us and that main body in the northeast because
Yeah.
we're a single platoon and that's full company. But at the same time, it also makes it like still a lot easier to engage that one platoon that's trying to turn our flank. Because I'm trying
Okay.
to put distance between us and the main enemy company, while also preventing the platoon to ourselves from turning our flank.
Understood.
So
Great.
that was my thinking. Might be a
Yeah.
little bit harder with a full-on LSM, but that was my initial thought.
But we don't know. We don't know. This has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I don't know what I know you're a young guy and you've already had a couple of different careers. Uh, I've been really impressed. You might give some thought to the military. Who knows? Anyway,
Thank you.
Nathan, Wolf 314, really enjoyed it. Thank you for your insights. Hope you enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, John. Had a great
Yeah,
time.
good. So viewers, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to click like and or post a comment to join the conversation. You can find more videos like this at our YouTube channel, as you see there. If you want to participate in the TDGs themselves, please go to warfighters.substack.com. We publish a new one every 2-3 weeks or so. You can see Wolf 314 posting his scenarios there. If you want to, I don't know what I did there. If you want to learn more about Shadowbox, the company, you can go to shadowboxtraining.com. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you can do so at Schmittzu, that's SCHMITTZU, at shadowboxtraining.com. I really appreciate you joining us. Hope to see you next time. Thanks, everybody.